Hey guys, Michael back here again. Season 2 Talk About It. We are excited to be joined this week by Danny Kerr with Breakthrough Academy.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
What's up, guys? Talk about it. Here we are. We got Danny Kerr with Breakthrough Academy. Extremely excited to be joined by him. It seems like I've seen him a ton here in the spring. Haven't seen him much here lately. Danny, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, so I got a lot of questions here for you. Dive into what Breakthrough is, but first, the reason we're here, the tacos. I've got my secret sauce this week. I'm going to be a little more careful with my sauce than I was in previous weeks. Make sure I don't put too much on and burn myself like I did. But what do you got for tacos, Danny? You got any local favorites? Anything you made yourself?
This is a homemade chicken taco, or taquito, I guess you'd call it. I don't know what you call these things. Like they got a little cheese inside and a little chicken.
Okay. It's homemade.
This was the other day's dinner. So
That's how you guys do tacos up in Canada?
So we got our own thing going on, man.
So, all right, here I go. I'm going to try the mystery sauce this week. Let's see what we got here. Much better. Didn't it almost kill me? So, again, thanks for joining us. We got tacos. You got great info. I'm going to enjoy tacos while you're giving us great info. Again, I said you're with Breakthrough Academy. Before we get too deep into the questions, tell us a little bit about what Breakthrough Academy is and kind of, how you came about starting the Breakthrough Academy.
Cool. Yeah, it's a very simplest form. It's essentially business training for trades entrepreneurs, right? People who are running landscaping, painting, renovations, roofing companies. They're scaling, they're growing fast, and they're very good at their craft, but they have never formally run a business at the scale they've ever run it at this point. So a lot of our guys are usually between the $1 and $10 million range. Roofing is a little different. Usually got guys between $2 and $15 million. It's just a little easier to scale in the roofing industry, but they're all growing out of control. And they're all trying to find, how do we organize our people and our profit and our processes so that everything kind of works together as one streamlined machine. And they're kind of just inventing it themselves, making it up, figuring it out as they go. And we're like, look, man, doesn't have to be like that. There is a way to do this properly. And we've created a system for everybody to follow. So I grew up in the franchising world, and I saw through a franchise a way to do a system that everything can be done replicatably, everything can be repeatable, everything can be predictable. You don't have to grind it out like an entrepreneur would don't normally do in startup mode anymore. You can kind of flow things forward. And I think for a lot of guys, grinding is important, especially when you are in startup mode in the business, but you don't need to do that for 20 years. After 3 to 5 years in business, you should be able to build a system that starts to run the business with or without you. And then that's basically what we do. We start to introduce that system to them as they grow and scale. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'd seen you a ton this spring with Highway to Hail, which was an awesome event. We were glad to have you joining us for that. For that, you talked a lot about, setting that foundation. And you and I have talked in depth about how important that is for a company, having that solid foundation. And I think it's a great analogy for contractors because, they understand that. What are some things that you want to maybe hit on here? Because from that setting the foundation, I know there's hiring, there's culture. Let's maybe go hiring first. Talk about, what Breakthrough Academy, believes in hiring and kind of how you help the contractors down that path.
Yeah. Hiring is probably, for a lot of you guys listening too, is probably the biggest challenge with the entire industry. If I was to take a poll of all of our contractors that we work with right now, hiring and recruiting and just finding good people is the biggest challenge with their ability to actually grow properly. So we follow a pretty close methodology that I used to use for years, and I originally used it to hire franchises, funny enough. So how do you find, filter, and develop a franchisee? There's a whole process to that, and it's quite in depth. And I think a lot of guys don't realize how much time, money, and effort it actually takes to find good people. So we really start to build out, and I'll talk about some of the specifics here in a bit, but we start to build out a very streamlined recruiting process. It's funny, when I look at their books, so one thing we do is we do a financial audit with all of our companies to see where they're at financially, and we can learn a lot from that. It tells us a lot about their DNA. But one thing I noticed in a lot of them, I'm like, what's your biggest challenge? They're like, recruiting. We need good people. And I'm like, awesome. Why are you spending $2,000 a year on recruiting and $40,000 a year on Google AdWords when you have more work coming out you can handle? They're like, never really thought about that. It's just kind of like there's a general lack of time and attention and focus on really recruiting effectively, and there's a huge focus on like selling and getting more work, which is great. And I think it used to be the finite resource for a lot of people, but since we've had so much stimulation in the economy, it hasn't been the finite resource. It's no longer getting work. It's getting good people. And we have to shift our focus from being all about sales and marketing to get clients on board to actually, and I'll talk a bit about it, but sales and marketing to get employees and subcontractors and good people on board. And that shift has to be a very intentional shift. And that's one of the first things we kind of bring to the table with a lot of these guys. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk about that, so what kind of comes to my brain is I'm a big believer in culture being a big driver in not only recruiting but retaining good employees. Is that something Breakthrough talks about? You know, when you're talking about, hey, how do I find these? Where do we put our attention? How important is culture? And if it's not the most important, what are some other things that you think are very important in finding the right person and then retaining them?
Yeah, well, you got to reverse engineer everything, right? So like you can't just hire somebody. Hey, my name's John, I'm a roofer. Hey, my name's, Jim, I'm a sales guy. Like, you have to hire people that fit the mold that you're trying to make happen. And so we actually start like by looking at the goals for the entire company. Before we even talk about recruiting, we're literally like, what are your goals as a company? And they're like, I don't know, we want to do 3 million a year. And I'm like, okay, but no, like, what are your actual goals? Like 3 million a year, how much in gross profit margin should that be? How much in overhead costs is that going to be? How much do you have allocated for bonuses? How much do you have allocated for overhead staff salaries? Okay, why are those numbers even important? Like, what's your personal why? What are your values that you represent to hit these numbers? Like, in what way do you believe you want to run your company even? We look at like quite a big picture before we even get into recruitment, right? And out of that, one of the nice things that comes out of it is we get goals not only for the company but for all the major parts of the organization. So we say, okay, each sales guy needs to do an average of $600,000 a year in booked work with whatever X margin off of every job they book. Each production manager needs to take care of 1.2 or $2 million in production. Each office administrator needs to take care of XYZ number as well. Like say it's AR. Like everyone should have a number that they're held accountable to. And when you start to realize what these numbers actually are, you're like, if I need like a project manager that's in charge of our gross profit margin on our jobs, I don't need a guy who just knows how to pound nails all day. Like I need a fairly like intellectual type person who can understand spreadsheets and can understand job costing and interesting. Okay, I need a more intelligent person than what I've been hiring for the many, many years. And it changes their like the lens at which they even look for what they're looking for in people, right? So when we establish those goals, then and only then do we actually start up talking about recruiting. So then we're like, okay, now you know kind of roughly what kind of like culture you want, you know roughly what kind of numbers you want to put these people in charge of. Let's reverse engineer who this person even is. So based on the core values of the company, based on the key tasks that these people are going to be in charge of, based on the goals that they're going to be in charge of, based on the other staff that are like this ideal client that you're trying to, or candidate you're trying to find, based on their wants and needs and fears and what they think about the business, we build what's called an ideal candidate profile. So a lot of companies have ideal customer profiles, like who's our ideal customer. We want them to think through who's your ideal candidate. What are their wants, strengths, needs, fears? Who are these people? What's their DNA? And when we draw up ads, let's not worry about as much about telling the world about what you want as a company from these people. Let's actually worry a bit more about telling these people what they can get from you based on what we know their needs are. We're selling them. We're silently selling and marketing to an ideal candidate, just like people would sell and market to an ideal customer. And if a company always just talks about themselves and why they're so great and what they do so well, but don't even care about what the customer thinks, they're not going to get many clients. It's the same thing for recruiting. If you just say, hey, here's all the things we need from you, here's why we're so great, like, and you don't even incorporate or think about what that candidate would be wanting or needing, then good luck finding people, right? Like an example of this is for salespeople. Here's one thing I put in a lot of sales ads is I'll say, work with our administrator to take care of all your sales admin needs under a description of duties. And why would I say that? Well, because I know psychologically, like most salespeople suck at administration, and they'll be like, finally, a company that can help me like book more work by
Yeah.
not giving me so much crap to deal with, right? So I'm writing my ad, but I'm writing it in the context of what I want the right ideal candidate to like drool over, not over what I think is best, but what I think they would want to hear. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I was reading some stuff in a forum today, almost on that exact like line of thought that put your pieces in place to do what they do best, and you're advertising exactly to that. Hey, you're great at closing deals. We've got somebody on the back end that's really good at being organized and keeping all your paperwork and everything organized. Now we've got a good system. Sales guy's happy. And then if you obviously hired the right person in that admin role, they're happy as well. And it works. So I think that's great advice. While we're talking about great advice, I know you have a lot of free handouts and things that you're willing to share with people. Um, Everything that Danny has that's free, this link below here, click on that. We're going to be able to get you those all emailed over at the conclusion of this. Also, if you have questions for myself, or obviously in this case, probably for Danny, email us marketing@companycam.com. We're going to be able to get those answered on our last week's show as well. So just a quick little ad in there while we're going. Danny, again, thanks for joining us. Let's jump into some more questions here. You talked about that retention, or you talked about getting the right candidate. Let's talk about retention.
Sure.
How important is, training up front and throughout the process to retaining those good employees?
Yeah. So whether it's employees who are W-2 or subcontractors that are 1099, especially in the roofing industry and a lot of trades industry, like they're still kind of your people. You have to take care of these people. And what I find a lot of guys do who are running these companies is you hire someone. You're like, great, you can take care of all this crap that I don't want to be doing anymore. Here you go. See ya. And they might spend a few weeks at best trying to show that person how to do the job. And then they're immediately out, right? Being like, hey, go do your job. See ya. And that's extremely unfair. It's your job as a leader of these people to lead them, to direct them, to help them develop over time. There's a course a long time ago I took in something called situational leadership. And what it was all about was trying to match the right level of leadership with the skill set of the individual person. And the interesting thing, a couple nuggets I took from it, one was that I don't need to be a specific leader even to a specific type of person, but I need to be a specific leader to a specific skill inside of a specific type of person. And what that would mean was like, I might be working with a sales guy and I might be sitting down with him and he's got 5 years of sales experience. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to gauge how much high direction do I need to give you in the art of finding needs? And I might go through it with him and realize, you know what, he's really good at finding needs. But then I get into a little bit more and I realize how much high direction do I need to give this person on like the art of scheduling their calendar so that they can get to all the quotes on time. And this person sucks at that. Okay, I'm going to give you high direction on like block scheduling your life out so you can fit in all the quotes. And I'm going to give you more of like a delegative, like trusting style of leadership for like, doing the actual sale itself. And by knowing how to like be highly directional on certain things, be more delegative in other things, be a bit of a coach in other things, it'll help people evolve over time. And what happens, I'll just give you a good framework for how this works, but all skill evolves through like 4 different quadrants. And it starts with like they're high, like eager, like they want to impress you, especially when they're brand new in business with you, but they're low in skill. And when they're like high commitment but low skill, you want to be highly directional. Look, like I know you're committed as all hell to me, but I know you know nothing. So I'm going to spend every waking moment I can with you, showing you exactly how to do things, explaining how we do them, why we do them, like high direction. And that's important for people who are in that beginning stage. Next stage is more of a coaching style. So now they've spent, let's say, 3 weeks with you learning, being like kind of, attached to the hip with you. You can now get them to a place where you can coach them. And what you're doing is you're still doing all the same stuff where you're kind of the leader of all the things that you're, showing them how to do, but you're involving them with a why those things are important. So the reason that we ask needs questions in this area of the customer is so that this can happen. The reason that we block schedule our time this way is so that we can fit in this many quotes. The reason that, and you're helping them understand the why behind the activity, because you don't want bean counters who just like always come to you with like, I don't know what to do next. Can you tell me? I don't know what to do next. Like you have to help them see the why behind things. So they're not pigeonholed with their decision making. They have a bigger picture understanding of things. And so after, a few weeks of that, I might start to move them to more of what I call a supportive style of leadership, where, I've been highly directional with you. I've involved you with a lot of the why and the decision making behind why decisions get made the way they do. Now I'm actually going to let you make some decisions. And so what'll happen, you'll notice this with your team, is they're pretty used to coming to you and saying, like, how do we do this? Or what would you do on this? And what you want to do is, when you know they're ready for this, you start to say, you know what, I have some ideas of how I could do this, but what do you think? And you empower them, because up to that point, their confidence in their ability to do what they're doing is quite low, but their commitment is quite high. And as you're moving them through this little chart, their confidence is basically like staying. It's just waiting for you to tell them always what to do, but their actual ability is raising. Like they're getting more and more like skilled, but they don't realize it because they're so used to always asking you. And so the minute you prove to them that, hey, you can make the decision, I'm going to empower you to do it your way and give them some creative freedom, and they prove it to themselves and they have some success out of it, you're going to watch them suddenly have a lot of confidence and a lot of skill. And that's what you're trying to do as a leader, is move up confidence and skill as you go through developing them. And you'll get it to a point where eventually they get to this delegative stage where you don't need to show them anything more about it. You don't need to talk to them about why. They don't even come and ask you questions anymore, because they're like, you know what, I got it. I'm like, you know what, go sell $10,000 this week, or $100,000 this week. They're like, yep, I know how to do it. See ya. Like there's no more like need to babysit them. And by taking the time in the early stages of developing somebody and training somebody properly, you can move your team all the way through to delegation. But what a lot of contractors do is they go high direction and then straight to delegation. See you later. And they miss that middle part. And that's where people fall off the rails.
For sure. And I'm assuming we'll get into that here in a second. That's something that Breakthrough Academy can really help contractors with. I think this is a perfect time to take a quick break. I'm going to grab some water here, and we'll be right back with Danny Kerr.
Let's talk about it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Remember, if you have questions, we want to get those answered. You can either comment below or email us at marketing@companycam.com. You may even get lucky and win a custom bottle of hot sauce. Even has my face on it. Again, marketing@companycam.com or comment below.
Let's talk about it.
All right, we're back here with Danny Kerr. Danny, great information so far. I want to dive a little bit deeper into Breakthrough Academy and how you guys can really help contractors with some of these needs. Before I ask some questions about that, give me just the high level. I know you've got a couple options with Breakthrough Academy. Tell me about those, and then I'm going to ask some questions kind of pertaining to those two options.
Cool. You mean just like how we work as a program, like what we offer?
Yeah, I know you got like the 6-week or whatever course, and then the longer 3-year.
Yeah. So everybody in our program starts in what's called blueprint. And so it's very much like building a house. You don't go build it overnight. You need to actually have a blueprint done first. You figure out where the bathroom goes, where the wiring goes, what the footprint's going to look like, and you do it all on paper first. So we spend about 6 weeks building that blueprint out for the business. We figure out where the financials should be, where the org structure should look like, what the job description should be written up as, what the recruiting campaign should be put toward, like where we should put time, money, and effort towards recruiting, how our training program should look, how the sales and marketing processes should go about, and even for the owner, how they should be spending their time and how they should be block scheduling and changing the way they fundamentally spend their time. So we spent about 6 weeks basically building a pretty advanced business plan and giving them essentially a business in a box. We give them all the content and tools they're going to need to do this for their own business. And then we're like, great, you got the basics, you see it all for what it is. We've got a business plan to follow. Do you want to actually go execute on it? Because there's a big difference between taking a course and actually implementing a real business plan. So then we have a coaching program that they go into that's month to month, and we meet with them every couple of weeks, and we slowly monitor their progress of their business while helping them implement key ideas and building the structure of the business. It's kind of like we're upgrading the business one piece at a time, one idea at a time. And every 2 weeks we're adding to it until they've got a pretty robust business management machine. And all of our ideas and topics aren't just standalone random ideas. They all build on top of each other until you build a complete structure. So it's very much like building a house. There's a methodology and order to how to do it effectively, and we just step them through that over time.
Perfect. So 2 things I kind of want to key on there. And the first one is you talked about, helping the owners really manage their time, those kind of things. Would it be safe to say a lot of your contractors that you work with they're successful. I mean, you don't get to $2 million in, overnight. It takes work. Do you see a lot of them coming in as just the hardworking hustle, hustle, hustle guys? And is that something you kind of help them change their thought and how they look at their business?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing about entrepreneurs. So I'm an entrepreneur myself, right? And I'm driven. I'm a doer. I have a lot of ideas, and I have a tendency to want to react very quickly to things. But that's fine. And actually, you know what? That's fine in the beginning. Like when you're starting a business, you need someone who has a lot of ideas. You need someone who's an executor of those ideas very quickly. You need someone who's good at sales and can naturally just hustle and make things come out of nothing, come out of nowhere. That's an entrepreneur. And these entrepreneurs, I'm one of them, who grow these businesses, get it to a place where, you know what, that hustle and doing it all yourself and being the doer of all things is burning them out. You can't do everything anymore. The ocean is too big. You're just a drop in a massive ocean as your business grows, right? You can't make as much impact as you used to be able to. So we have to slowly retrain the way they think and what they see as valuable for their time, and help them shift to go from being like a doer of all the things they do every day to really not doing anything active in the business, but being more of a leader of their people and a builder of good systems, and seeing how that makes a much larger impact in the long term of their company. And I think a lot of guys, they're a little bit addicted to their old habits, even though they know what I'm saying is true. They're kind of like, yeah, but like I really don't want to sit in the office right now. I want to go and just get it done, right? It's quicker. It's like immediate gratification. You get dopamine when you go and fix the problem right away. It's harder to step back a bit and help take time to train your people, take time to hire that right person, take time to think a bit before you go do. And the ramifications of that are huge. And it's one of the biggest lessons we have to teach a lot of people. And it doesn't come from just a webinar where we talk about it. It comes from us getting them to make a little bit of change in a day, getting some success out of it, and then watching them just mentally buy into that. One of the first things that actually, those who are listening, here's a cool exercise for you to do. If you want to make a bit of change, write down all the things that you do in a week, and then circle the stuff that's high time consumption and low skill. And whatever that stuff is, if it's enough of the things, create a role around that, whether that's administration or sales support or whatever that would be, or field support, create a role around that. If it's not enough, think through how you can delegate a few of those things. Because it fascinates me how many people are running multi-million-dollar companies and doing things that are like $10 to $20 to $30 an hour jobs, and it's costing them a lot more than they're saving by doing it themselves.
That's awesome. I love that exercise, and I think it would probably be eye opening to even some of the best contractors out there. They participate in that exercise. I know you've got a story, and I don't know if this was kind of the aha moment for you, but when you were in the painting world and you had a couple contractors no longer with your company, and share that story. I feel it's very powerful just hearing you talk about it and kind of how that goes. So tell us a little bit about that, the quick version of it.
Sure. I was 18 years old. I just started my first business. It was a painting company, like you were saying. I was arriving on site to my very first job site. I was late. The ladders had half fallen off my truck, and when I opened the door to the job site where all my guys were waiting for me, 3 of the paint cans fell down on the ground and just like blew up all over the sidewalk. And like literally, without even talking to me, like half my team just walked off the job site. They're just like, you know what, we're done. Like, you're an idiot, basically. and fair enough. Like I was being a bit of an idiot, and I was like, oh shit, like I've got a ton of work booked right now. I literally have enough work for 6 guys, and I only have 3 now working for me. What am I going to do? And I was very like quick to be like, well, I've got 2 hands, so I could probably use 2 brushes and at least get most of the work done for the two guys. I don't know if I could replace the third though. Like I don't know where my third hand's going to come from. And I was like, that was my immediate gut reaction, was to go and like just figure it out myself, work extra hours, and keep the customer happy. And I had a coach at the time, and I called him, and I was just like, this just happened. Like, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And I was like ready to problem solve with him all the ways to get these jobs done. And he's just like, stop. Do not put on painter whites. Do not grab a brush. He's like, if anything, actually, don't even let the 3 guys that you do have around with you, don't even let them start this week. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, that's like the polar opposite of what I'm trying to get done here. Like, you're an idiot. And he's like, no, Danny, you're an idiot. You're about to go paint all these houses, get stuck in the day-to-day right in your first month of production. And guess what? That's never going to end. And that cycle's never going to end. He's like, slow your guys down that are about to start with you. Go spend the next week or even 2 if you need to. Go rehire the people that you've lost properly. and then start your production year. And you know what? Yeah, you pissed off one customer, you pushed a few things out, but the next year of your life will be different as a result. And I did. And it changed everything for how the summer went from there. And it was a massive lesson that I was like, man, I really am my own worst enemy sometimes, because I think about things, but I'm too reactionary when I'm in the moment. And I was young at the time, but that lesson never left me. And it's something still to this day I question myself on about my decision making. Like, am I just like running to go fix the problem, or am I actually thinking like, is this the most effective use of my time? What's the bigger issue here, right?
Perfect. And speaking of time, that answer came almost at the buzzer here. We're almost out of time this week. Danny, you have so much good knowledge. Is this something that if somebody wants more, maybe they're not ready for the 6 weeks? Is this something that they could reach out to you, connect with you, and just talk and see if this is Breakthrough would be a fit for them?
Totally. Yeah, we do it every day. We're pretty just like open company. Just like if you want some advice, you need some help, like we're pretty non-transactional. Like whatever you need, we'd love to help.
Perfect. Well, I would suggest everybody, check out Breakthrough Academy. Obviously, if you want the free stuff, the link below, you can get that. Again, Danny, thanks so much for hanging out with us this week. If you do have questions out there, marketing@CompanyCam.com. We will make sure we get those answered either immediately via email if you want to connect with anything with Danny, or on the last episode of the season, we'll get those answered. Next week, we've got one of our newest integration partners at CompanyCam, Dan with WorkEase. We'll be chatting with him, trying the new mystery sauce. Until then, enjoy some tacos. And Danny, again, thanks for joining us this week on Talk About It.
Thanks, Michael. Awesome.
Let's talk about it.